ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
All right, it's time to get your Friday underway. I am your host, Paul Swann. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We are a day away from Marshall in action. Sun Belt Conference, and the opponent is set. And I'm not sure I believe this, but Texas State is going to be the opponent for the Thundering Herd. Watch out. Cinderella might have arrived at the tournament, at least the Sun Belt tournament. So you got to worry about Texas State tomorrow. We're going to have that game here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930, but that's not the opponent I thought we were going to get. We talked about it yesterday on the show. Who would you rather see? Would you rather see Marshall take on Old Dominion, or would you like to see Marshall take on Texas State? Some of you actually said go Texas State. Well, you got your wish. So it's going to be Texas State and Marshall. We go on the air 5 o'clock, tips at 6, all right here tomorrow on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So we'll talk about that matchup a little bit more. We'll get your text in. Let me open up the text line for you now. It's 304-396-TALK. 304-396-8255. That's our number to text into the program today. You can find me on social media at Twitter. It's at Paul Swann. So I'm on Twitter at Paul Swann. And, of course, we're going to hear from Marshall women's basketball coach Tony Kemper today because the women were in action earlier today. And unfortunately, the season ends for the women. Not the way that Marshall would have liked to have seen the season end. Of course, when you lose, you don't want to see the season end that way. That's a given. But Marshall, I don't want to say they got outworked, they got outplayed. I don't want to say anything like that because I don't think that's a fair statement. But they fell to James Madison 62-43. Marshall just couldn't get going. James Madison, from the start, started dropping bombs on Marshall. They came out really hot, and they started hitting shots. And so Marshall fell today in the tournament. So you go 1-1 in the tournament. You get a win, you get a loss. That's better than some teams. You still had a winning season. 17-14. That's a winning season. Is it the best record possible? No. Is it an okay record? Yeah, it's a winning record. You had a winning season. So that's something to build off of. And we'll see if the Thundering Herd can build off of the core group that hopefully is coming back. Abby Beeman, we're going to hear from her in a few minutes. I watched the presser today. I was on the Zoom call just listening. And you could tell that Abby was not happy. I don't know if she just wasn't happy with herself, happy with the team performance, dejected. You could tell there was a lot of disappointment in her face. And she's probably not going to realize she had a good season. She had a good run in the tournament, and that'll come here in the next few days, I'm sure. And she'll realize, yeah, she did something pretty good this year. She had a good season. And you can't win them all. And unfortunately, that's just going to be the case. But I like this Marshall women's basketball team. I like Coach Kemper. I hope that Coach Kemper gets an opportunity to continue. I'm not implying anything. What I'm saying is I hope he gets the opportunity to continue on because, let's be honest, coaches are evaluated on a yearly basis. And, I'm not implying anything. I'm not trying to stir up anything. What I'm just saying is, I really hope that Marshall continues with Coach Kemper, short-term and long-term. I like what Coach does. I like the kind of program that he's built. These are fine representatives of Marshall University. That's important. They do well academically. That's important. So Herd loses today. We're going to hear from Tony Kemper in just a few minutes. Now, also on the program today, we have got Marshall golf coach Matt Grobe. He's coming on the program here in about 20 minutes, give or take, as we get a player of the week on the golf side. We'll tell you more about that when we bring Coach on, and we'll get an update from him on how the team's faring at this point. So we've got all of that coming up. And, of course, as I mentioned, your texts are coming in. We want them now. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. So that's what we're looking forward to today, talking to you, also getting you caught up on everything that's happening with the Thundering Herd. So the big one is the women fall to James Madison, 62-43. There was a pretty good crowd there. Herd fans that maybe got in early to see the men. Maybe some that came down a little early specifically to see the women. So there was a nice pocket of green at the arena today, and hopefully we'll see a lot more. There hasn't been the overwhelming crowds just yet. Now, again, these are some of the early round games. I didn't expect huge crowds to begin with because, after all, it's a tournament. Yeah, are you going to take off in the middle of the week? A lot of you can't. Could you take off if Marshall was playing yesterday? Could you have taken off early to go down and spend a few days at the tournament? I mean, some people plan their vacations around this, and that's one way to do it. But I wasn't expecting huge crowds here. I will for the Herd tomorrow, though. I expect a good Herd representation in Pensacola. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. How much can Marshall turn that into a home game? And if there's a nice sea of green, that's going to play in favor. Yeah, some of you might not remember this. Some of you definitely remember this. And Marshall would take over conference tournaments years ago. Marshall fans would show up. I mean, Asheville was a big deal. Heading down to Asheville to see the Herd play in the Southern Conference, that was a huge deal. It was a fun atmosphere. I got to go a couple of times, and that was fun. It changed to the Mid-American Conference because there really wasn't a set place where you could go. You had to, first of all, you had an opening round game at home, or if the Herd wasn't high enough seed, would be on the road. So you couldn't even plan to go to the tournament until you found out if Marshall won or lost and then could go to the tournament site. So there's no sense in me taking off. Yeah, I'm not going to go because the first game might not be at the tournament site. And then you get into Conference USA and eventually it happens to be at the Star in Frisco, Texas, which, again, I gave it a shot. I really did. I don't miss the curtain. I don't miss seeing the curtain or having two courts, games going at the same time, two sets of whistles, two sets of buzzers, two sets of everything. Fans reacting off in the distance, and you're like, what are they reacting to? Oh, it's over there, on that court. No. One court, one game. Let's go. One whistle, one buzzer. Let's go. So that's what we've got here with the Sun Belt. So far, so good. Thundering Herd, unfortunately, on the women's side, out of the tournament. The men will get underway tomorrow. We've got it for you. Herd taking on Texas State right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930 and 93.7 The Dog. We'll talk a little bit more about this women's game. We've got comments from Tony Kemper, also Abby Beeman. Later on, Matt Grobe joins us. We'll talk Herd golf when we continue with today's edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We're here until 6 o'clock. Our text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Matt Grobe joins us in a short bit. We're going to talk about Sunbelt golf. Marshall actually has a golfer of the week. So we'll talk about that as well. And we're going to hear from Tony Kemper in just a moment as the Thundering Herd on the women's side fail to advance, falling. It was a tough one today. It was not the way you wanted to see the Thundering Herd go out. Felt real good about the Herd's chances. I felt real good about Marshall being able to have a competitive matchup with really one of the best teams in the league, and that's James Madison. But Marshall fell 62-43. Couldn't get anything going offensively. Really, I was waiting for that comeback. When's the Herd coming back? When's the Herd going to reel off 12 in a row? When's the Herd going to come back? And unfortunately, that was not the case. Marshall just shot 32.7% from the floor. That was including 3 of 17 from three-point. And James Madison came out, knocked down 4 of its 5 three-point attempts in the opening quarter. Pretty good, huh? That's a way to put a dagger quick into a team. And I still thought Marshall had a chance. At no point until we got to late in the fourth quarter did I think, okay, yeah, I don't know if they're going to reel off one of those patent comebacks, and if they do, it's going to be too little too late. So the Thundering Herd falling, eliminated now from the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. Earlier today, I was on the post-game Zoom with Tony Kemper, and he talked a little bit about the game, just gave us an opening statement. It's sort of his generalization of what happened.
Yeah, obviously that was a tough day for us. You have to credit James Madison a lot. I thought their early ability to make shots panicked us, and we had been a really good defensive team for quite a few games leading into this. We were not that today, but I do think that's what happened. I know they made 4 out of 5 in the first quarter, and we talk a lot about. Good players are going to make some shots. You have to make them tough, and then you have to reload and go play again. And, I think the gravity of the situation kind of snowballed on us, meaning they make, and then this is a group that wanted to play well today. So, they make, and then we've got players that want to go right after it. And you have to have a level of patience to actually perform on the offensive end when that stuff goes on. And, so I think they stressed us, and then we stressed ourselves on the other end, and then that snowballs. And then they just continue to make enough at key moments that, we could just never really mount a comeback. But our defense, that was one of the, we just left a lot of people open. We have some things that we like to do that today we weren't very good at. And it's a bad day to have a bad day. But that's what it was, and their 9 for 21 from 3 is a lot to do with that. I brought Abby Beeman Jr. Abby had a really good tournament down here today. She won't feel very good today, but she's been a heck of a player for us all year, and so
we're going to hear from Abby in just a moment. But to continue with Coach Kemper. He was asked about the team's cold streak. There was a point where Marshall just couldn't get anything going. Long stretch of time where Marshall was scoreless. Some of that was maybe bad shot selection. Some of that was just good defense from James Madison. And Coach talked a little bit about that. Now, again, he couldn't compare and contrast too much from the last time when these two teams met just a week ago. But he did talk a little bit about that cold streak and how it impacted the team.
Yeah, you got to go back and really watch to know, did we actually take shots that we like or not? I think they guarded us well. They did a pretty good job switching on ball screens. We struggled to put pressure on the rim. And, if we can't put pressure on the rim, then we do have some shooters, but it's hard for them to be open if you can't really get some pressure down at the basket. So, I know that contributed to it. So tough day on offense, and it was a tough day on defense too. And that's a bad formula to play well. But, I think something that I looked up there at the end, and I had 3 timeouts left in the game. We lost by quite a bit. So, a little bit of that is trusting them. We've been in that situation a lot all year. And we've just found spurts of like 12-0. And so I'm sitting there watching it going, you just got to be patient and you got to save those because you're going to need them at the end, because that's just been us. I mean, that's by far the worst loss we've had in conference play. And I don't know the stats on that. I just know many of them are 1 or 2 possession games. And many of them, we had stretches where it wasn't perfect out there. And they would level off and they would go on a little spurt and then you'd be right back in there. And today we just couldn't mount that spurt.
Also, when talking to Coach Kemper earlier today, the media kind of threw out a question about this being the first year in the Sun Belt and asked Coach to really talk about what that was about as far as his team is concerned, how the team fared in the league, and what the team needs to do to be better in Sun Belt play. And Coach broke it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about that as a group, and I know that we haven't spent a lot of time as a group talking about we're built from the ground up this year, and so I think when you look at that, today's no fun. It is no fun. But I also know that the nucleus, there's a lot to grow on in the nucleus. We have to find a way to get a little bit more physical. I mean, to compete like on a day like today. I mean, they've just got some size at every position. But this one right here, I ask her every day. I'm like, I think you're growing a little bit, because she jumps up there and gets 9 rebounds. So that's kind of a thing with how we play, but we also have to figure out a way to not make it a thing, And so I think that she's a really good example of that. She figures out a way at her size to really impact every phase of the game. And so there's a good base there to make another jump next year. I know we were in a ton of close games, wins and losses. So there is we have to understand that as a program. Like, there's no margin for error on the off season. There's no margin for error on a night on the road, second night. We've got to grow at that, because we don't walk in there and just physically are going to have it all perfect. We've got to get a little more physical. That's part of it, But I think that the way the league plays, I think we match up with well. It's pretty fast paced. We're pretty good in transition. I think it was a good first year. I appreciate this tournament. Appreciate the way they put it on. I think it's a place where Marshall can have good tournaments down here. So I'm positive on that. We just want to grow as a group, and we've got a lot of them back that I really like, and we just got to put our head down and get better.
One of those I think Coach really likes is Abby Beeman, and she was asked that same question that Coach just answered about the first year in the league. How good the league is, what's the team really need to do, and she talked a little bit about playing in the Sun Belt. She gave it a lot of respect. And it's not a league where you can just show up and win. You never know which team's going to win on any given night.
Yeah, I think every night you never know who's going to win, no matter what the record is. Everyone competes. I don't think there's, from the first team to the last team, there's a huge gap. So that's something I really appreciate, competing every night and knowing that there's not going to be a game where, we can lay down and just think it's going to be handed to us. So I think it's a really good league. I think, like Coach is saying, there's a lot to grow from this group and, as a whole. So I'm just really excited for the future, really lucky. I feel blessed to, have the opportunity to compete in this league, and, I want to make it a better year next year. So
that's Abby Beeman. Also, on the game itself, one of the questions that was asked of Coach, what did JMU do differently? How did they adjust after the last time these two teams faced off and Marshall won that one? How did JMU come out this time and beat the Herd? What were they doing that was different?
Well, I don't have the stats from the last game. They were 9 for 21 today. So, but but I don't know that we did a good job. I thought Jefferson was better today. 5 for 9. She made some shots early. So probably that, just general shot making. But and then we never had over there. We had a push. The storm that we weathered, we did to them. Today we never did that. So that's probably the difference. Is over there we threw something at them, and today that shoe flipped. They hit us for 4 for 5 out of the gate. We sort of tried to manage that, but really could never come back. So that's probably it. Just shot making. They put it together, and after us kind of maybe surviving that initial push, we never put one back on them.
Tony Kemper on today's loss and what JMU did differently to the Thundering Herd. And there was one other question I wanted you to hear the response to, and it was to Abby Beeman. And she talked just a little bit about her journey and this just not being the ending that she wanted for this season.
Yeah, I feel like, my story's a little different. Thankful for the opportunity to compete at the highest level, wear Marshall across my chest, and, play with my team. Like you said, it's not the way we wanted to end it. It's going to hurt all off season, but hopefully that motivates people coming back, myself included, and, really hoping to be in a better position next year.
So she's indicating to me that she's coming back, and she was referenced in the JMU press conference that she was the head of the snake, that JMU thought if you can take care of Beeman, you're going to have more success against this team, and that might be the case. So she's definitely a key asset for this squad moving forward. But that was something that when I was listening to the other presser, she got a lot of respect from JMU. So hopefully her game will improve and continue. She'll grow, and we'll see her in a Marshall uniform. When we come back from break, we're going to hear from the head coach of the Marshall men's golf program, one Matt Grobe. There's a Sun Belt Player of the Week among his ranks, and we'll talk about that when we continue on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Friday, March 3rd edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And I've been teasing this for a couple of segments. We've got a golfer of the week now in the Sun Belt. Thundering Herd senior Tyler Jones, he finished the Loyola Intercollegiate at 7 under par this past weekend. That placed him in a tie for 6th and leading Marshall to a 4th place finish at the event. He also had a final round 67. He had 6 birdies, and he finished 5 under. And Marshall tied for the top team round in the tournament. So, pretty good week. I think the person that can tell me a little bit more about his performance and probably summarize it better than I can is the head coach of the Marshall men's golf program, Matt Grobe. And we were joking off air. You remember when once upon a time when Jason Corrier was SID, we always had this saying, if you win a prize, you get to come on the show. So you've won a prize. Here you are. Congratulations.
And we need to win more prizes so I can be back more often.
See, that's what you need to do. Just force your way on this show. Just because I can't say no. If you win something, I can't say no. That would just be wrong. Exactly. So how's it feel? You get a Sun Belt Player of the Week. Now, or Golfer of the Week. Let me walk this back a second. It's different for you because you're not going up against conference foes the way everyone else is. You're still basically competing against yourself, against other teams in tournaments.
Yeah, that's correct. And if you look at Tyler, he won this week, finishing 6th and had a great tournament and against a really highly ranked field, and beat a couple of kids in the top 100 and shot that final round 67. But he started off winning the Joe Fagans Marshall Invitational in the fall and didn't win it that week because somebody else won a tournament with higher ranked kids. And then he goes to Dayton and he wins the tournament at Dayton at the end of our season. And the same thing, he got edged out by somebody there. So, Sunbelt has some really, really good golfers. And I was happy to see Tyler win because a couple times he's been nominated and I thought he had a really good week, but it just didn't, somebody else had a better week.
Is it more difficult then because you don't know the other players as well? This is your first go in this league, and you don't go head-to-head against everyone every week, so you don't have a feel for who's good and who's not. So, is it frustrating when you have a guy who probably should be player of the week or golfer of the week win the honor, and someone edges him because, you just don't know who's good?
Well, I'll tell you the one thing that I've told our kids from the very get-go, this is a really, really good golf conference. It's full of great players, and the weeks that Tyler, won those tournaments and didn't get golfer of the week, I thought the guys that won it were very deserving. I mean, I looked at the field they played in and the course they played and how they played, and I just think that when you look at Sunbelt golf, I think it's really impressive. And so I was really excited for Tyler, to be the first Marshall men's golfer to ever win the award, and hopefully it's the first of many for us as a team. But at the same time, it just shows you how deep the Sun Belt is, how good the Sun Belt is, it's really talks more about what a great conference we got when you can win. And there was, I think, the first week he won, there was 3 other kids that won tournaments that week. So now you're trying to pick between 4 champions, and that's pretty impressive when the conference has to pick between that.
So how do you feel the season's gone so far? Again, you're not going up against you're not competing against teams in the Sun Belt, but you're going out there trying to win as much as you possibly can because you're trying to prepare for the tournament at the end of the year. How do you feel about where you're at so far?
I was, as you know, we've had a really, really mild winter for us. So I felt like going out to Phoenix, I really felt like we had a chance to compete, and the guys did exactly that. We actually played pretty well out there, and I think a lot of it came back to the fact that our January and February here, we got out 8 to 10 days, and we're actually able to play golf. Last year, I don't think we played until we got to Phoenix, and so I think when you start to look at this winter being really good to us compared to the Southern teams, I felt like we had a good winter, and this first tournament really showed that, we didn't have a lot of rust. The guys played really good, and Tyler continues to lead us. He's such a great player and such a great leader, and it was good to see us get out there and get off to a good start to the spring.
Matt Grobe is with me, the head coach of the Marshall Men's Golf Program, as the Sunbelt Men's Golfer of the Week is Tyler Jones. So in week 7, we finally get a golfer. That means this is going to start rolling downhill. You're going to get more and more as we get closer to the tournament time. I just don't know what you're going to do because it's not in Texarkana anymore. I don't know what you're going to do.
I really like Texarkana. They were great to have us. And so they wanted us there. The city wanted us there, but I think Annandale down there in Jackson, Mississippi, is absolutely wonderful. I got to take a site visit in the fall. The golf course is incredible. The city's really nice. I think they're looking forward to hosting. So there's a little bit of as a coach, a little bit of a negative in the fact that Tyler's played 3 years in a row at Texarkana, and some of the kids have already played there, and now all of a sudden we're going to see something brand new. But the good news is everybody's going to see something brand new because the conference hasn't been there, either the Sun Belt or Conference USA. So we're all going to see the golf course for the first time in April.
There's no opportunity for you to go see the golf course ahead of time. You can't go down. You can't, play around. There's none of that allowed.
No, the head coach is allowed to go in the fall. So I was able to go do a site visit in the fall, take a look at the course, take a look at the area, kind of do a scouting trip, if you will. But the players themselves are not allowed on the property, and we won't be allowed. We're allowed to chip and putt the day before the practice round, but that's it. And then we'll have the practice round, and then it'll be go time.
So it's just a walkthrough for you. You can't actually – do you get to maybe play the course, or you're just basically walking through and looking around?
No, I was able to play it, but the problem is I don't play golf nearly as good as my guys, so I'm not really sure I can tell them what I hit into the green is going to help them with what they need to hit into the green. So it helped with me seeing the golf course and seeing where I need to get out and areas I think I need to coach them a little bit in, areas I think that are going to be difficult for them. But the problem is my game's nowhere near as good as theirs, so I can't relate it and let them know what I did on this course.
So what does a scouting report look like when you look at a golf course? Is it full of photos? I mean, have you gone so far as to get drone footage? How's that score? What's a scout look like?
Well, none of that. We do get yardage books before we go that have really good detailed information. And, for me, I can talk them through the holes and kind of let them know which hole does what. But, for the most part, the practice rounds where they're going to get all their work done. And the practice rounds take forever. I mean, we take probably 6 hours to play the practice round just because kids hit shots from every different area. And, we'll talk about, what side of the hole we need to play here, where the penalty areas are, and make sure that we're all on the same page before we leave that hole and go to the next one.
Okay, you were keeping score, right, when you played it? How'd you do?
I did okay. I mean, for me, I think I was right there in the mid-70s, which is about the kind of golfer I am now. I wouldn't want to challenge any of our players on the golf course, but I played okay. Okay, so they have to do better than you. They better do better than me, or we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Joining me on the program, it's been a long time, Matt Grobe. He's back with us. The weather's been good to him. The Sun Belt's been good to him. Since I haven't really had a chance to talk to you for a while, now that Marshall's in the Sun Belt and you've got this athletic director that's been around for a while, what's happening with golf that maybe we're not hearing about? What's going on that's benefiting you or that's in the works to benefit you?
Well, John Sutherland and Christian and really the whole staff have done an incredible job of trying to further men's and women's golf. We're really updating our indoor areas, doing some things that are really going to make it nice for our players and as well as for recruiting as well. We're doing some things at Guyan that's going to really help the golf course at Guyan and the look out there, as well as make our golfers feel like they're part of the country club there. And so I really, really like the things that Christian and John Sutherland are doing for our programs.
Are we talking just refurbishing facilities? Are we talking new facilities? Anything like that? Long term? Because I know just from my experience, short experience, the guy, meaning Mr. Spears, the guy has a wish list.
He does. And I think for right now, he's trying to refurbish all of our stuff and make it look up to date. And then what happens in the future? I think he has some big plans for us, but right now he's trying to make sure that we're able to compete at the level we are, and trying to make sure that everything that we've got for our student athletes is top notch.
And that includes golf clubs, that includes apparel, that includes bags, that includes everything, right?
Well, I tell you what, our apparel is incredible this year. The guys are so excited. I think we've got some of the best clothes we've ever had. As far as equipment goes, we're getting upgrades to the indoor areas that we hit where our TrackMan is and our simulator is. And so, yes, it's definitely been a really good year for Marshall golf, both men's and women's.
Matt Grobe's with me. Tyler Jones, Sunbelt Men's Golfer of the Week. Is there anyone else that we should be keeping an eye on? Not just Tyler, anyone else that can maybe contend for a Golfer of the Week award?
Well, Tyler played great. He's our all-time leading scorer, and I think he's going to set the record at the end of the year. But Ryan Bilby from Follansbee, West Virginia, he's played enough rounds now to be ranked, and he jumped in at our all-time scoring average at number 5. So I think he's got a really bright future as a sophomore, playing great golf as our number 2 guy right now. And I think it's just a matter of time before he finds a way. I think sometimes maybe he really wants to win too much, and he pushes too hard towards the end of a round, trying to get himself closer to the lead rather than just kind of playing golf. But a lot of that just is growing up. So we've got to do a little bit better job with him, just keeping him calm and keeping him patient because the ability's there. I just think sometimes he really wants to win right now and we just got to kind of pull the reins a little bit on him. But keep an eye on Ryan Belby.
You mentioned homegrown talent. How much more have you seen the growth of golf with now the two Division I programs really putting a lot of effort into men's golf and women's golf? Obviously, you want to grow the sport on both sides. You would think that more competition would be a burden, but at the same time, you've seen a lot of growth in the sport, so you can actively go and recruit the state and bring in a lot of that homegrown talent.
There's no doubt about it, and I think that a lot of it, of course, goes to WVU. Starting a program was great, and Coach Kovich is doing a wonderful job up there. And of course, here at Marshall, we've got a storied program with Coach Fagan started, and we're trying to keep that going. But the West Virginia Golf Association also is incredible. The events they put on for juniors and amateurs and seniors, they're just top notch, and they just keep growing the game. And the West Virginia Golf Association has done a wonderful job of growing the game of golf in West Virginia.
My guest, the head coach of the Marshall men's golf team, Matt Grobe, Tyler Jones, Sunbelt Men's Golfer of the Week. So now we've got one on the list. We want two, and then we want three. So you know the drill. Again, get to cracking. Make sure everybody wins, so we can have you back on. But we're getting closer to that point now where you actually get to go to the tournament here. So I know you're pretty excited about that. Once basketball is done, we can focus more on what you're doing.
Yeah, let's hope basketball plays for a while, though. I'd like them to play for quite a while before it's time to switch the focus to us. So hopefully they do good stuff starting tomorrow and get us a tournament win. It'd be great to see. I know they're playing good basketball. I know our kids are rooting for them, and so hopefully they have a great weekend and then keep going.
It's just as long as they're done by April 24th, right? Yeah, they can have all they want. April 24th, we turn our attention to you. And here's the thing. I don't think I've talked about this. The coverage of this event, I'm not so sure how it was in Conference USA, so you may have to correct me, but this is going to be on ESPN Plus, so I can follow this a lot closer than I could have in the past.
Exactly. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for our kids. I'm really excited for the parents. At this last tournament, we had three of the kids that had their parents there. But the other, we had three other kids there that parents couldn't make it. So I think it's going to be really nice for our friends and our family and our fans to be able to watch our kids compete for a championship. I'm really excited about that and can't wait.
Does that play any into the recruiting? Does that help? I mean, are there leagues that are far behind where the Sun Belt is right now?
Absolutely. I think it helps us immensely that not only the talent that we have in our conference and what a great conference this is, but then to take that a step further and you're going to play on ESPN and have a chance to be seen, across the country. I just think it's incredible. And I think our kids have really embraced it. And I think that, future recruits are going to embrace that as well. Matt
Grobe, my guest, we want to say congratulations once again to Sunbelt Player of the Week, Golfer of the Week, Tyler Jones, first hopefully of many, as it's about time. I think that's probably the best thing to say. It's about time, that he gets a little bit more recognition, even though this is a really tough league. So hats off to you. Congratulations to him. I promise we'll get you more into the show. You won't have to win all the time to do so. But if you want to spread that word around, just go ahead. I mean, just establish that. I'm going to let the team know and everybody else know. If you win, you can talk to Paul. That's the big thing. I hope that doesn't work against you. I really hope that has a positive effect here. That they go, oh, okay. So if we win, we got to talk to Paul. I hope that doesn't backfire on you. Yeah, I don't think it will at all. I'll say this, and hopefully we can get Tyler on in the future. I was talking the other day to softball, and you probably notice this. You probably get this a lot more than maybe other people would. When it comes to Marshall, people care more about things like golf and softball and the players than they would at other institutions. And Are you seeing that more and more? Are you hearing that from your golfers where it's a different feeling here at Marshall? And I'm sure that plays into your hand as far as recruiting because, it was just a softball player was excited to be on the show with me. She absolutely was just, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you being on the show. I couldn't believe it here. How much, she told me the other places she's been really just, she was an afterthought.
Yeah, I think for us, what I feel great about is, we talked about Guyan, the members there follow our kids. Our kids show back up and they're talking to them about how they played. The city of Huntington cares about these kids and cares about how they're playing. And I think it really also, we talk about helping with recruiting. I think kids want to come to a town where the town cares about the university, cares about the people, cares about the student athletes, and want to see them be successful. And that's really exciting.
It was Autumn Owen. She just couldn't believe that someone would want to talk to her. So we got to get Tyler on soon. That way, he knows that we're excited for him. But thanks for doing this. I appreciate you, and hopefully we'll get you back in here soon, and we can talk more about what's happening with you.
We really appreciate you. Thanks for covering us. Thank you.
That is Matt Grobe, head coach of the Marshall men's golf team. Quick timeout. We come back and wrap it up here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our final segment of today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow. 5 o'clock, actually. It's going to be like we're doing the show on Saturday. 5 o'clock, our airtime for our pregame coverage. Marshall taking on Texas State. We turn our attention fully to basketball starting tomorrow on the men's side as Marshall will begin its run in the Sun Belt Conference Tournament, taking on Texas State. I didn't think it would be Texas State, but here it is. And so can Marshall win 3 in a row, get into the NCAA tournament? We're going to find out. It all begins Saturday. If the Herd wins Saturday, back at it on Sunday. If the Herd wins Sunday, championship on Monday. Marshall should be well rested. Of course, the top seeds should all be well rested. This is going to be anyone's tournament. I don't think there's an odds-on favorite. Any team could win it at this point. So we'll find out what happens starting tomorrow. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Drive. I want to thank my guest, Matt Grobe, for coming on and talking about his program. Men's golf is really picking up at Marshall, and we hope to have him back on real soon. Basketball tomorrow, then full speed ahead towards the tournament, March Madness. The Herd can get to Monday night. We're going to have an exciting evening, I think. It'd be nice to be on the cusp of winning a championship, don't you think? And that's going to do it for this edition here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.